Welcome to another QMR. It's been a long time since I've done one of these, and there's a bit of a difference this time. This time, the reviews will actually be quick, because that's one thing about QMR that I wanted to work on since the last one, where my reviews weren't that quick for like the previous. I think I did four of them. I think this is my fifth one. Um, yeah, they weren't that quick. So this time, it is a bit different. I'm going to be doing 1 minute for each of these movies. I'm reviewing 6 movies, ones that I missed out on earlier, and also ones that I saw recently but didn't have the time to do a full review on them. So you're going to get my opinions on each of these in a fairly quick fashion. So yeah, without further ado, let's get on with the reviews. I never thought they would make a fourth Kung Fu Panda movie, but here we are. So yeah, Kung Fu Panda 4. I love the previous 3 movies, so I thought I'd definitely look forward to the fourth one. And even though this movie has some great animation, awesome action, Jack Black is awesome, there is some stuff that drags this movie down to just being okay. The lack of the Furious Five, that kind of bummed me out. I wish the Furious Five were here. I mean, Poe is great, but I thought he really worked well with the Furious Five in the first 3 films. The story isn't that engaging most of the time. If it wasn't for the humor and Jack Black and the action and the really great animation, this movie would not have been as good for me. I definitely thought it was underwhelming, but I enjoyed it in the end. I am going to give Kung Fu Panda 4, and I'll give it a B. Oh yes, Roadhouse gets a remake, and instead of Patrick Swayze, it's Jake Gyllenhaal taking over the role, where he plays an ex-UFC fighter turned bouncer. It's directed by Doug Liman, and you know what? This movie's dumb fun. It's not meant to be taken seriously. It's got some ridiculous fun action. It's got Jake Gyllenhaal being pretty badass. It's corny as hell, man. Just like the original, it is corny and cheesy, and it's dumb. But it's decent fun. Yes, there's some bad CGI in this movie. This movie's a bit too long. But you know what? It's mindless entertainment. It's well directed enough. I thought the tonal shifts were a bit jarring, but I had a decent time with this movie. I recommend it if you're a fan of the original. And I am going to give Roadhouse a C+. Thanksgiving for idiots. That's what I call Founders Day. Imagine Thanksgiving, but without the wit, without the entertainment value, and without the likable characters. That's Founders Day. This movie is insanely forgettable. I mean, it's got gore, but it doesn't have any memorable kills. The scares sucked. The killer sucks. A lot of shit about this movie sucks. The only things I can really say about Founders Day is that it's decently well made, I guess, and there are a few gory moments where the gore looked pretty decent. But other than that, this movie is just empty garbage. Didn't care for it. This movie was a massive disappointment. It's definitely one of the weakest slasher films I have seen in recent memory. And yep, unfortunately, I'm going to have to give Founders Day a D. Imaginary is Jeff Wadlow's latest horror abomination. Okay, so he directed the previous 2 movies for Blumhouse, Truth or Dare and Fantasy Island. But Imaginary is different than those 2. This movie's just as bad as those 2, But one thing that this movie lacks is the fucking unintentional comedy. Fuck, was this movie boring. I didn't find it interesting, even though it has a decent enough concept. The acting was shit. The directing was just as bad. It doesn't have any unintentional laughs like I was expecting from it, considering it's Jeff Wadlow directing it. This movie was just a big snooze fest with a lot of cheap jump scares. There's no good scares in this movie at all. No entertainment value to be found here. This movie was a gigantic waste of time. And you bet your motherfucking ass that I'm giving Imaginary an F. So Love Lies Bleeding is not only the latest A24 film, it is also the latest lesbian-themed crime movie. The previous one was Drive Away Dolls, and that movie sucked. Not this one, though. This movie was fucking awesome. I loved Love Lies Bleeding. I thought Kristen Stewart and the other actress, I forgot her fucking name, but they worked extremely well together. This movie also has an endlessly compelling story. There's some good action in this movie, too. It's nice and violent. There's also some steamy sex scenes if you really like some lesbian action in your movies. Lots of good stuff to praise this movie for. It's well shot. It's extremely well directed. I really love this movie. It's easily one of the best movies I've seen this year. And this was a year that's full of fucking garbage lately, but not Love Lies Bleeding. This is easily one of the highlights of the year so far. I found it highly entertaining and exciting and riveting. And I am absolutely giving Love Lies Bleeding an A. Oh well, Miller's Girl. Took me a while to see this one. It stars Martin Freeman and Jenna Ortega in a toxic teacher-student relationship. And this is one of the worst fucking movies of the year. Like Imaginary and Madame Web, this movie was fucking garbage. I hated every fucking second of this movie. It tries to be a comedy, it's not funny. It tries to be an erotic thriller, and it wasn't erotic and it wasn't thrilling. This movie was a gigantic waste of time. It has one of the worst screenplays of the year. The direction sucks too. I hated every goddamn second of this movie. This is like the second worst movie of the year for me. I hated this almost as much as I hated Madame Web. This movie was awful. Fuck this movie, man. Don't watch it. Don't waste your fucking time. I am absolutely going to give Miller's Girl a very well deserved fucking F.